The primary tools you're going to need is a roll of actual safety wire. I prefer the 32 seconds or 32 thousandths diameter stainless steel safety wire. It's thin enough that it turns easily. It's strong enough with the stainless steel that it doesn't vibrate off or break easily when it's actually installed on the bike, and it's easy to remove later with a pair of side cutters. The other tool you're going to need is a pair of safety wire pliers. The other thing you're going to need is a lot of 1/16 inch drill bit. Make sure that you have a drill that has a chuck that will hold a 1/16 inch drill bit, because some chucks will not go down small enough to properly hold them in place. For safety wiring, the things that we generally want to have safety wired are going to be all four of the axle nuts. The other things that we like to see safety wired is, on this bike it doesn't have it because there's no oil in a Moped PSA, but on bikes that actually have oil in them, you're going to have to safety wire the drill bolt, the fill bolt, and the drain bolt. On the Moped PSAs, I generally want to see somebody actually have safety wire or nylock nuts on the swinging motor, and a good way to safety wire those is just down to the little post on here. Peugeots are a little bit different, but it's going to be roughly the same thing. The other things that we like to see safety wired are going to be, if you have hydraulic disc brakes, the banjo fittings on all ends of the hydraulic disc brake. So the one up at the actual master cylinder, and the other one that's going to be on the caliper itself. This is actually kind of a three-step process. So what I'll do is I'll start directly in the center of the flat spot and drill perpendicular to the actual head of the bolt, the nut itself. And then I'm not actually trying to drill a hole straight down, I'm just trying to get a starter hole, and I'll show you why in just a second. Once you get the tip of the bit just under the surface of the flat spot, you're actually going to want to try to just slowly keep the bit working, but while rotating it down so that you're still drilling a continuous hole, but you're actually changing the direction of the hole. So just like this. Once you get it to a certain point, the bit's actually going to start poking itself out through the other side of the nut. You want to actually stop drilling here and then turn the nut around the opposite direction. Start just again on the other side, going perpendicular again. And it'll poke a hole through there pretty quickly. And then basically do the same thing as you did starting on the other side, and just walk it down until the bit travels all the way through the hole. The reason you want it to be clean all the way through here, I've seen other people drill two different holes coming down at angles to meet in the center, and you don't want to do that because it leaves a sharp burr inside there, and it's also harder to get the safety wire actually through. This actually leaves a straight hole that runs all the way across and is actually easy to get the safety wire in and out of, and the edges of it aren't going to be as sharp as doing it the other way, so it's less likely to vibrate on the edge and break the safety wire while riding. Safety wire is generally the last thing that you do when prepping the bike for the track. I like to go around on whatever the alignment bolt is on the different bikes. Some of them don't have this. Sometimes you just have to drill a hole back here or someplace like this. Every bike's going to be different. Every swing arm, every axle is going to be slightly different. When you're actually doing this, all you want to do is just simply slide the wire through here, find a place that you want it to actually be tied back to. I'm just picking this spot here, and you'll notice that it's not tight because I'm just making an example video, but you want to pull enough safety wire out to get around this bolt, and then bring out twice as much of it because you're going to actually have to double it up. Then, using the clippers on your wires, cutters, flip it off there. Okay, and then find out the place where you want it to actually stop. That'll be the first place where you're going to need it to actually tie back to. These pliers actually, when you squeeze them down, there's a little locking mechanism in the center that allows you to hold on to it. When you're tying it down, you want to make sure that both sides of it are flat so that when you grip it in here, that the two pieces of wire aren't on top of each other, because it'll cause it to not stay inside the little gripper. But once you get it clamped down, then you simply just twist the end of this wire before it snaps off. It's roughly about this many turns. Tying it up more than that, it's just going to physically snap the wire. Then simply wrap it around to whatever you were trying to hook it onto. And then repeat the process on the other side once it's curved up. Pinching it like so, locking it down. and then just twisting it, and then there'll be a little tail end off, and the pliers usually cut this in such a way that it's really sharp and you will stab yourself with it, so I usually just bend it out of the way, so I'm most likely to catch it with my hand later. And that's all it takes to safety wire an axle. Just do that 4 times and you'll be done. 2 of the most common motors you're going to run into are going to be Minarellis and E50s and ZA50s, so all 3 of them having oil inside of the transmissions. You're going to have to safety wire the drain fill and the level bolts, so on like a Tomos. The easiest way to do this on an E50 clutch cover is if you drill a hole right here in the corner and then replace this with an Allen bolt here, then you can actually drill just a hole through the side of the Allen bolt and safety wire back to this hole here. That way you can take off your clutch cover as many times as you need to with the bike on its side and not have to undo the safety wire every time. Same way with the bottom of the cases. It's usually I'll just safety wire to right back here. It's just a lot easier to do. And then that way your oil can't drop out onto the track if your bolt rattles out while you're riding it. Everybody else really appreciates you when you don't dump oil all over the track. So another one of the more common bikes you're going to see on the track is going to be the Hobbits and the Vespas, and both of them having removable subframes. They both have completely independent hubs in the back as opposed to having normal axles like most other bikes. So the way you would safety wire these is actually a little bit different. There's going to be the 4 bolts at the top and the bottom on both transmissions. Just drill these bolts out and safety wire from like here to here, and then here back to the little holes that they always have in the bottom of the subframes on the Hobbits and the Vespas. Because these actually do have oil in the rear transmissions. That actually becomes kind of tricky because the way that the breather on the top of the oil transmission is not really accessible on either one. So usually you'll just, because the drain and the fill is the same on both the Hobbits and the Vespas, just safety wire this back down to here or someplace else. The actual drain that's up here you can't really do much with, so it's still going to leak a little bit of oil if the bike's on its side, but it comes out at such a slow rate that it really doesn't matter. The other place on the bike that you're going to see a lot of safety wire is going to be on the banjo fittings on the hydraulic line systems. You typically want to make sure that any part of the bike that's going to leak a fluid out onto the track, if it fails, that has some sort of positive retaining system on there. Safety. But with some of the banjo bolts, the hollow section on the inside actually comes up pretty high, so you might accidentally drill into the hydraulic part of the side of the bolt. So usually just drill right through the corners. It's simple enough. The other place I usually like to put safety wire on bikes is the bolts that actually hold whatever the mounting system for the front caliper is on. So, and it's not that hard. You can actually just go bolt to bolt. The other subject I wanted to touch on as far as making the bike track ready this year, I believe that they're requiring catch cans to be installed on all the carburetors. The idea of the catch can is that actually when the bike falls on its side, because you inevitably are going to crash the goddamn thing, is that when the carburetor is on its side, it's not leaking your oil-fuel mixture out onto the track and making the track slick again. So what you do is you install a simple can on the side of your carburetor that allows you to catch all of that. The one carb that we're going to be using a lot of out there at Tomahawk Cup this year is going to be the Delorto SHA series of carbs, because that's what a lot of the stock class racers are going to have on them because of the 15 mil limit, and that's what came on a lot of the bike's stock. But the problem with these is that you can't actually effectively put a catch can on top of them. The overflow on an SHA is actually these little holes right here. There's one over here, and then there's one on this side here. With the plastic cap actually on top of here, you won't be able to see them or get to them because it actually physically covers up the holes. I'm not sure what we'll have to do for that. Might just ignore it. We always have up here in Portland, but it's something to consider. The catch can itself can actually be anything. We typically use the 5-hour energy drink bottles because they're common. We always have them. They're easy to use, and you can just zip tie them somewhere on your bike. The reason you want to have 3 holes in here is because when you actually install this on the carburetor, if you don't allow the catch can itself to breathe, it's going to vapor lock the entire carburetor, and it's going to constantly flood no matter what. You just slide the tubing up on each side. You know, there's not much to it. Here with a zip tie. So when it sits on the bike vertical, it's fine. The reason we like to use the screw cap bottles is because the cans will actually collect fluid even if the bike is not on its side over time, so you'll have to drain these out every once in a while.